Yes, it's that time again, the quarterly VRchat video, even though I'm pretty sure I'm way behind schedule with the latest one. But yes, we are back in the game that arguably isn't a game, it's more of a social platform that totally has the cleanest reputation and totally isn't known for having people that take it way too seriously.
I'm shaking in my boots.
You know what they call my paws, right? Look at the right one. They call that the lightning, and they call my left one the thunder. Don't mess with me.
Holy. No, twin.
Who's laughing?
I think that exploit still works where if you mention the name of the great evil troll proximity chat 3 times in a VRchat lobby, it will either force the entire lobby to empty pretty quickly, or it will taunt one special individual into a blind fit of rage to the point where they start claiming all sorts of things from proximity chat as a murderer to even claiming they have murdered him.
Oh, I'll get proximity chat after you. I'll get proximity
chat. Yeah, he's dead, actually.
No, he isn't, actually.
Actually, he is.
Your demons kill him? Huh?
Something like that. I had someone take
Something
care
like
of
that.
it.
Why did I talk to him yesterday?
Oh, that was his spirit, actually.
Oh, his spirit has a Discord account?
Pretty much, yeah.
You're
There's also the people that claim they have such things as phantom sense, where they can touch, smell, or taste things within the virtual world, and usually they tend to overreact as soon as you attempt to test this sixth sense they have.
That I can feel things, then yes, technically I would feel the stick, and it doesn't feel appreciated. It almost feels like someone IRL poking you with a fucking stick to your damn face.
A few moments later.
We also cannot forget about the e-daters and the people that hump the virtual pixels on the platform, who have somehow managed to manipulate every feature added onto the platform to fit their own needs, to say the least.
But I play my game at my own pace. I don't play at your pace. I like to move accordingly. I know deep down you like to be a good girl, but you like to play bad. Oh yeah, and I wouldn't mind crawling inside that nice little sweet p*** of yours.
And then there's the people that say and do the most diabolical shit on this platform.
Doesn't mean that I'm a pedophile, dude. I think people freak out way too much about like age consent type shit.
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
Now, I could go on my usual spiel of saying, you know, VRchat wasn't always like this. It used to have a somewhat decent reputation where you could actually tell people you play it regularly, and they didn't look at you like you had just admitted to curb stomping a freshly spawned fetus. And you could actually talk to people in public lobbies before most of the sane people moved to private worlds, leaving us with kids screaming slurs at the top of their lungs. But the thing we're going to be talking about today is something that recently happened within the VRchat community, and boy oh boy did it cause a lot of drama. If you don't know who BrandonFM is, he's a creator I've cited in my videos before, and someone that has released their own videos in the past criticizing VRchat and its many flaws, which one video in particular is somewhat credited with VRchat adding age verification earlier than intended in response. Something that people were requesting for years just for it to get put behind a paywall, which just made people even more mad, but to be fair, they use a third party to verify people's ages, which does cost them money, and once you've verified once, you don't have to do it again, even if you don't pay for the subscription anymore. But rambling to the side, he recently released another video or investigation along with another YouTuber called Jumper, who also released their own video showing their findings, and altogether it has left the VRchat community somewhat divided. One party seems to think it was an absolute nothing burger where a lot of these things are expected to be found in VRchat, and there were quite a few memes made in response related to the lengths these two went to for their investigation. And on the other hand, the others thought it was credible proof that VRchat and its moderation are aware of a lot of the issues on the platform and are complicit, involved, or personally biased when it comes to enforcing the rules. So quite differing opinions on each side. But what was discussed in these videos? Well, quite a lot. Both of them together are nearly 3 hours long. But to keep it simple, the YouTuber Jumper created an alter ego called Satori and spent over 500 days in VRchat, where he not only managed to worm his way into some of the more prominent groups of the game, but he also got close to some of the staff of VRchat, more specifically the so-called face of VRchat, Tupper, the official head of community. He was so dedicated to the investigation, in fact, that he attended a fair con just so he could get the chance to meet him and confront him about the things happening on the platform. And I have to tell you, I was also involved in this investigation. I was the senior staff in... Yeah, I'm fucking with you. I had nothing to do with this. The most involvement I had was Jumper getting in contact with me in like May of this year. I got an invite to a server, and then once or twice when I was in the VC in my server, he'd join and waterboard me and a friend with information regarding his findings. And he also discussed with us his plan to attend a faircon to meet Tupper, in which me and said friend then promptly made a few jokes at his expense just at the fact he was going to attend the faircon in a fairy disguise. I'm still very disappointed he didn't actually follow through with that disguise. He is a pretty cool guy, but he didn't mention that for said investigation he quit his job, college, and essentially self-isolated himself, only playing the game for 500 days, where he actually deployed some sort of method acting and fully immersed himself in the role of the average VRchat player, to the point where for his investigation he witnessed and took part in some ERP or heroic roleplay. Obviously he didn't fully take part in it, or at least he says he didn't. I hope to God he didn't. But yes, he did get cracked on VRchat. That's also why you see a lot of memes referring to it as well.
You need to hang up that computer call. Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
You know, personally, I couldn't have done that. I would have rather taken a deployment in Saigon during 1975. But hey, that just shows how dedicated he was to the investigation, I guess. I hope the PTSD he obtained around that time was worth it. Now, as said, under his alias, he managed to get close to the bigger groups of VRchat and even the staff of the game. He basically did a Rust insider raid just with many extra steps and the cost of his own mental health. But it is pretty funny since from the investigation in both videos, it seems like all you have to do to get close to said important people is follow the path of the average trusted user on the platform by ERPing, drinking constantly, and building rapport by making art pieces of people within the community, and bada bing bada boom, you now have connections to some of the biggest and most influential people on the platform. It is weird how that works, like all roads lead to Rome or some shit. But the key takeaways from the videos and investigations was that 1, it seems like the VRchat staff are very close or even associated with some of the groups that host events where things like NSFW activity happens. It was even alleged that some of the staff are in the instances where it happens, with some, dare I say, being in the splash zone of the activities, despite things like this apparently being against their sort of vague terms of service. The terms of service, which can be interpreted in a way where all of these activities are not allowed on the platform, which would make sense since, you know, it's 13+. But the confusing part is that the TOS is then contradicted by their own community guidelines, which says things like this are allowed on the platform as long as it's in a private world where everyone consents to the activities occurring, and as long as they are all adults. But it's also said if someone doesn't consent and makes a report within the private lobby, then there possibly will be action taken, and that lobby is then treated like a public instance where all of this is not allowed. And you see warnings about keeping things in private instances all throughout the platform. This is why it's so confusing. Do VRchat staff follow the community guidelines or the platform's TOS when dealing with reports or witnessing NSFW things on VRchat? Especially when it comes to ERP or avatars that have explicit toggles. The TOS says one thing and the community guidelines says another. And at least from speaking to Jumper, he seems to think that the TOS and community guidelines are intentionally vague so they can allow things like ERP to continue happening on the platform, whilst at the same time saying they don't condone it. But it's also weird how some of the VRchat staff who are supposed to enforce moderation, or at least act somewhat professional on the platform, according to the recordings, have been seen on their main staff accounts in group lobbies where these types of things happen. I get that a lot of VRchat staff are past VRchat players and they are allowed to have their own lives outside of their work, and regardless, nobody really cares what you're doing in a private lobby with consenting adults. I think even in the videos they made, they reiterate that point multiple times. Whilst yes, they did make ERP look worse than it is within the videos a tiny bit, but if you are going to attend these events where people are getting their backs blown out even if you aren't involved or doing the blowing out, why are you attending on your main staff accounts? Like, just attend on an alt or something.
It's like going to boat and there's someone like, literally there's two people
like off in that direction. I'm just not looking.
No, I
I'm talking
remember.
to Nina
Like, this
about
really
how she
isn't
needs
as
to go to
bad.
church.
And I get Tupper is the so-called head of community and the face of VRchat, but I think there is a line somewhere of how involved you should be with the community. And past that line, it starts to become somewhat unprofessional as a VRchat staff member to be in these instances. In my opinion, it's just overall not a good look for VRchat. And of course, people are going to question the integrity of VRchat staff and question if they are turning a blind eye to a lot of this, especially if they're in these types of lobbies and there's already confusion with the TOS if these activities are even allowed in general. And there's already supposedly been allegations against VRchat staff before, so it doesn't exactly inspire confidence. But going back to the Guna instances and VRchat staff, if we went to extreme lengths, it's like seeing the Roblox CEO David Baszucki being caught in an 18+ Roblox condo, and even if he wasn't doing anything in the lobby, people would still lose their shit and begin questioning the platform if they haven't already. Yes, that was just a made-up scenario, and yes, I know Roblox and VRchat are very different. Roblox is a game that was seen as always for kids that is now seeing a problem as more adults are playing, and they're trying to make it more so adults and kids can coexist. And they're also pushing for it to become a dating platform, which is just weird. But VRchat, on the other hand, was almost the complete opposite. At the start, it was dominated primarily by adults and was thought to be an adult platform, but it's now seeing problems as said adult platform basically got invaded by kids due to things like the Quest being a thing, and they are advertising it as if it was for kids despite many of the adult themes that are basically baked into the game for all to see, whether it's the avatars, worlds, or simply the function and names of groups anyone can see and join. And that's not even mentioning the things people have implemented for ERP like DPS, which does not stand for damage per second. And this is sort of like the same predicament Roblox is in. They can't decide if their platform is for kids or adults. And in VRchat's case, it currently sits in a weird in-between on a platform that in my opinion is mainly for adults and should be 18+, not 13+, that has kids actively running around it, which has caused a lot of problems to say the least. And seeing VRchat staff also being present in NSFW groups or events and potentially taking part in it, yeah, just once again, it makes VRchat look bad.
Then why are we not getting it handled, right? Like, this is something you have like a power to change.
No, to circle back to the beginning, my job is not trust and safety. I can repeat this for the 6th time, I think.
Lobbies like Boat should not exist, and you, as a developer, actively engaging with that stuff on a plus platform, like Tupper, come on, bro. Like, how you were gonna expect me to not tell you to like be accountable and report what's not like allowed?
Yeah, no, you have. It's an arguable point. It's a difficult point as well. Like, it's a place where they're breaking the rules by definition, but also they're not like coming to like hate and harm kind of things, which are the things I'm very worried about. Like, your safety.
But that little tangent to the side, it gets worse in the next part of the investigation, where they go over how VRchat staff allegedly have a bias towards the groups and people more on the NSFW side of the platform. In one instance, a VRchat user who had connections to the staff and made adult content on the platform, and I think was a VRchat prostitute or something, bragged about how they basically had immunity on the platform and was even a tenant of one of the staff members in real life, which in their own words just made them even more untouchable.
Listen, I'm literally going to be living with a staff member. I'm basically like locked into not getting banned at this point and like not having problems with the VRchat team. Like Tizzy is like universally loved by everyone at VRchat. Like, she moved faster up in the company than anyone else pretty much ever has.
If this stays low key, like, I basically went up to Scout and Tizzy at one point, and I was like, "Hey, you know what I do? Are you gonna ban me?" And the answer was like pretty definitively, "We're not gonna ban you." And it sounds like, furthermore, they don't really give a shit about NSFW unless the investors throw a fit. But I would describe myself as like an embassy in another country. The things that I do in VRchat, because of the value of the relationship for the company, to me, tend to be less impactful on my account safety and my reputation than they are for a lot of other people. I won't say that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. I think favoritism is a bad thing. What I will say is it allows me to have an advantageous position to advocate for others, advocate for my community.
I remember hearing this through the grapevine. Didn't Tizzy, they used to be like a Second Life person, didn't they?
Oh, she played with like Pirate Software back in the day.
Specialist for Blizzard Entertainment and Blizzard.
I'm sorry, every time he's mentioned, I feel like it's mandatory to throw that clip in there. Anyway, that person did later walk back these claims when they found out it was part of the video and investigation, but the same thing was also being said by a popular VRchat group that was also somewhat involved with ERP and the more NSFW side of the platform, where from their own mouths they say VRchat staff knew about their group and even in one case helped them out personally when it came across problems.
For those of you that don't know, we are the most active group on the platform, adult or not. We have more instances open and more people in those instances than any other group on a regular basis.
Yeah,
and we've seen our numbers go up quite a bit. You know, we have typically over 500 people in our lobbies every night now. We hit almost 1% of the entirety of VRchat that was logged in RBN instances.
So I guess I only have like one. Is RBN a group that is like recognized by VRchat?
Yes.
I don't understand how that works because isn't it like a whole gray area of how it's able to exist?
But that's exactly why they like us. We basically operate the same way VRchat does. Let's consider how VRchat works. VRchat works on a report-based system exclusively, yes? What do? We operate on a report-based system basically exclusively. If nobody's complaining about gooners, who are we to? Here's what you need to understand about this. The iStore and the Android App Store do not allow adult content, which means that VRchat cannot be adult content. Otherwise, they lose all of their platform. Over 50% of VRchat is Quest users that are using the Android operating system. The game has to be plus. It cannot be an adult product or marketed towards adults or whatever the you want to call it.
We essentially enforce the TOS.
Of course we enforce the TOS. We're big friends with VRchat. They have added me as friends. I've talked to them on Discord. We're about as official as it's going to get because we exist in that gray area that they need, because they can't acknowledge that adult content exists in any way, shape, or form. The same way the media player works, man. They can't acknowledge any of that because guess what? Oh, it's pirated movies. So what are they doing in Popcorn Palace? VRchat does this.
Well, we know that VRchat has acknowledged us is... Y'all remember when the group was deleted originally back in December? We figured out when we tried to recreate the group that VRchat had blacklisted groups called Phantom Clothes, which is our banner. Someone at VRchat blacklisted our banner name specifically to prevent impersonations.
Also, we were unbanned and undeleted, so obviously they're on our side.
VRchat directly told us that they saw that we were following the terms of service, which is why the original group got unbanned.
Once again, if you trust everything these people are saying, it doesn't look good for VRchat staff with how somewhat too personally involved they are with the community, especially the NSFW. It was also said that within some of the private worlds where NSFW activities were occurring and they reported some of the players for doing it, which within the community guidelines, which a lot of people defending this point to, means that that private instance is then treated like it was a public instance where none of this activity is allowed, because every adult has to be consenting to the activity. But upon reporting it, they claimed nothing really happened. These people were still on the platform, including the person that was making adult content on it. It was also claimed that VRchat themselves lied. If you remember the Sitbox situation, who was a mod for the official VRchat Discord server, he was caught doing some weird stuff in VRchat and there was a video and a Google Drive made about it, and they managed to get somebody to send all this evidence to Tupper, where they timed him looking at it for only 12 seconds and then saying he couldn't do anything, despite being the server owner at the time. But when they eventually dropped the videos about VRchat and Sitbox in 2024, VRchat would release a statement saying they're investigating Sitbox and another mod, later saying in another announcement they found no wrongdoings, but within the first iteration of the statement they apparently clarified this was before Sitbox was a mod and was taken years ago, with Sitbox adding to this in his own statement saying they were doing this activity when they were underage. But if you look at some of the evidence, it was taken when groups were visible above their name, meaning it was taken after 2022, 2 years before the video was made, and it was the same time VRchat had them on their Discord moderation team unless they lied about their age, or VRchat is allowing minors to moderate for their Discord. So at the very least it could be said VRchat was apparently lying when they said Sitbox was only doing this when he wasn't a moderator, or perhaps even VRchat was lied to when they were investigating. And within his response, Sitbox said he stopped doing things like this, yet in the latest video he was found doing it again. But to give credit where credit is due, after the videos dropped I checked the Discord server and he's no longer a moderator as far as I can tell. However, speaking of reactions after the videos drops, this may be a coincidence, but they recently announced within their community leaders Discord, which is where most of the VRchat staff got in contact with the bigger groups of VRchat, and was one of the Discord servers focused on in the video, but they announced they would be shutting down the Discord server. I don't know why they would do this, maybe because they have people in there they don't want in there, or because they are distancing themselves from certain groups. I can only really speculate. But their given reason was something along the lines their Discord server wasn't good enough. Those are only some of the main points brought forward in the videos and investigations, so I would recommend watching both BrandonFM's and Jumper's video on it. And yes, they do bring forward some fair points regarding the integrity of moderation on VRchat. However, it does seem like there has been some problems regarding the way the investigation was conducted and some of the contents within the video. For one, it is now being claimed that one of their points regarding a developer of VRchat who was previously exposed called Fusel was now masquerading as another user called Fusel. However, it was later claimed that these two are actually two different people. And there's even a video a lot of people are now pointing to showing the two of them in an instance together after the investigation dropped interacting.
So, hello. So you two have never met or talked before, really, right?
No.
Yeah.
It's she, her, right? Yeah. She messages me and
In my own personal opinion, at least from the tone of voice and cadence, it does seem like these are two different people. You could also argue things like the morality of the investigation, as they did deceive a lot of people getting to know some on personal levels just to get closer to moderation and for their investigation, and they also did record things like their ERP with other people. But yes, you can argue the morality of all of this, but I've seen some claiming it's illegal, which I think is a bit of a stretch. I can't lie though, I thought the Half-Life reference at the end of Jumper's video when they all found out it was him and all started unfriending him en masse was pretty cinema, I won't lie. So yeah, the investigation and video also weren't perfect, but once again they did bring forward some fair points regarding the integrity of moderation on VRchat. But there was one clip I was sent by Jumper which he forgot to include in his video, which, I'll be honest, once again does make VRchat look pretty bad. And it was taken at that FairCon where Jumper asked Tupper why VRchat isn't 18+, and he proceeds to respond by basically referencing the MasterCard situation where it was said they started pressuring Steam to remove 18+ games. He says marketing an 18+ platform is very financially risky, whilst also saying there's interest from investors for them to go 18+. But he also says it wasn't their own active choice to be 13+, they only did that because of laws. He goes on to say it's very difficult being an 18+ platform because they have to verify people, which is confusing for me because they already do, they have age verification. And he continues to say it's a bad idea to be 18+ because it also limits their audience, I assume, to just adults. But he also finishes off with his comment about how when he was young, if he didn't have access to places he shouldn't have by that age, he wouldn't be the person he is to this day. I think he's more referring to games, but it's a very weird comment when you're being asked about VRchat, why that isn't 18+.
What would prevent VRchat from being like a 18+ platform?
That's what would prevent it? So the easy answer there is to be like, oh, it's friggin' MasterCard, or it's evil Visa. And it's ultimately the answer actually is like from a financial perspective, marketing an adult platform is very risky. there are, like, as you can see, there is interest from investors to do that kind of stuff, from people that are throwing around money. The problem is you have to do it in a safe and responsible way, especially when right now your only restriction that you have on your platform is what's legally mandated by CABA, which is why we're 13 plus. It wasn't an active choice. It was just like, oh, that's the law. Yes, that's what it is. 18 plus is difficult because first off, now you have to guarantee that, which means now we need to start handing out verification, which is tough. And then second off, it highly limits our audience. I don't know about you, but when I was like 15 or 16 on the internet, if I couldn't get to the spaces that I got to at 15 or 16, I fear whatever the hell I would have turned into. I would have been some kind of boring ass chud or something. I don't know, man. But instead, I ended up on places like World of Warcraft and Ragnarok Online and EVE Online and Something Awful and places like that. And that's what turned me into this hell person I am now. So I understand why people would want that, but 18 plus to the normie world is like, oh, there's titties in there, right? So, yeah, we have to deal with that financially. Yeah. Okay. Hopefully that answers the question.
Anyway, as I've said previously, it's only a matter of time till VRchat sees the same attention Roblox is seeing in the current day, as they share the same problem, just the opposite way around, and they are going to eventually have to decide if the platform is for adults or children, and they'll have to make appropriate changes. And yes, I know it's not an easy decision. I get that if they choose it's for kids and make changes, they lose their adult players, and if they make it just for adults, they still lose a significant amount of their player base. Either way, as a business, they lose. Even though, in my opinion, if they made it more for adults, I think they would be fine, but that's just my opinion. But one day VRchat is going to have to make a choice if they are for kids or are for adults. And once again, in my opinion, these latest videos and investigations did bring up some fair points. Also, if you are staff and you are going to goon or join a gooner instance, for the love of God, do it on an alt account. You are representing VRchat. Jesus. Anyway, that's just something I wanted to yap about. I guess I forgot to mention my hours in VRchat. They've only gone up slightly since the last videos, primarily because I get in VR to do these types of things. I don't play as much in my free time anymore, and I will still use the excuse that most of those hours are from COVID and playing it when I was younger. I am not addicted. Anymore, at least. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Go fuck yourself, and bye-bye.